And welcome one and all to Planet Poetry 28 for April. It's great to be back. We have a wonderful, great lineup of poets from all over the place tonight reading with us. I really love this event. For me, it adds another dimension to spoken word when you can read along with the poem. Sometimes I wish when I go to live readings that there was a screen behind the reader so I could actually read it too, and just racing through their poems. And there's so much there I want to hold on to a little bit. So this event to me is very special, and we'll eventually, very shortly, we'll be. I'm working on getting it into a magazine form as well, so that every month it will be in paper as well as being available on YouTube under the channel of Planet Poetry 28. And I am Mark Fishbein. I'm the host, and I'll tell you a little about myself, my bio. I'm a native New Yorker. I graduated CCNY in 1971. Followed by a maîtrise at the Sorbonne in Paris. I have 7 collections of poetry. The latest one being Reflections in the Time of Trumpius Maximus, which I think will gain some interest as years go on, and this character fades into history a little bit. I hope. And I'm also the chancellor of something called the Poetry Academy, which is a division of the Poetry Global Network. We do workshops and events such as this, and we're also I'm also known as Poet with Guitar because I do play guitar somewhat semi-professionally, and my belief that good poetry finds that sweet spot between meaning and being, and so that's kind of my tagline. And I'm currently based in Chicago, where I have 3 grandkids, and one of them is here joining to hear me read. So I'm going to break the ice and begin with some poems. I've written a lot this month, but it seems like the Poetry Month, but a lot of them ended up about Ukraine. And so I'm going to read 5 poems, short poems about Ukraine, different aspects of it. 4 million. Half the children in the country are refugees. 4 million teddy bears, Snoopy dogs, and neon cats. Filthy from train floors, homeless and stuffed with tears, their pores squeezed by moist, tiny fingers, only their fuzzy amulets to comfort them. 4 million clutching like a passport to freedom, deep-set eyes of holiness, stare suspiciously, speak in whispers, terrified of the demon that comes to take their amulets away. Street kill. There are sacred tombs for unknown soldiers, but none for the unknown civilians. They just shot people dead and left, said an eyewitness. You hid in the furnace room for days as the firebombs exploded with the smell of death and burning hair. The bombing stopped, no food or water. You dug yourself out, and now see neighbors sleep-deprived and terrified, wandering dazed among blown-up houses. A group of men in uniform surround a kneeling woman right ahead of you. You see skull bone as the bullet hits the ground before the body gently slumps sideways. They march towards you with the verdict in their slaughterhouse eyes, and you freeze like a stunned animal as they tie your hands behind your back and shove you to the center of the street. You feel an itch on your cheek and instinctively twist to scratch it. You mumble something about God, see a parent, a beloved. You hear a click. War fever. I've seen enough genocide live on TV. The animal in me screams. We must send rifles, send tanks, send jets, send drones. Shoot to kill Putin's filth, burn their wives and children, litter the streets of Moscow with heads of their dead boys thrown out of an airplane like rain. How long ago we all sat at the table. The whole of humanity proposed a toast. let there never be the unthinkable. And now I can only revel in cynicism as retired generals explore the nuance of low-yield atomic war, because honor will prevail somehow, some way, after the seizure ends, after the extinctions. How to be an oligarch. Decorate the yacht post-modern Milanese. Do make sure to include a urinal and bidet. Play tacky music throughout the day. Don't be gay. He doesn't like gay. Go to auctions and buy Basque. Hang his picture above the fireplace. Pretend to have fun at the Politburo because you have to behave. No vodka, just cocaine. Convince yourself there are no morals and you understand the Russian soul because he's a killer. This you know. He'll have you sleeping with the fishes far below, just like Grandpa in Stalin days. Ukraine Tale is based on a true story. One of the thousands of interviews we've seen with the Ukrainian people. You snuck out of the bomb shelter we shared with 20 others as I slept below the dripping pipes. You went out every hour or two to the hallways and paths above to smoke your beloved cigarette. I told you it would kill you, that you might grow old with tubes in your nose. I begged you to quit, to clear your lungs. But off you went, clicked your lighter, and sucked in the poison from a glowing red dot. I wonder if you saw the soldier hiding in a bombed out car, ordered to kill anything that moved in the dark. Oh, my brother, my only brother, I found your body pockmarked with bullet holes and dry blood, the cigarette butt still between your fingers with its crooked stem of gray ash. Remember we were boys in the old theater, a movie in black and white, a soldier lit a match and the trench was blown apart. We looked at each other and laughed. Oh, my brother, my only brother. I dug your shallow grave, you and your goddamn smoking. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, that empathetically helps a little. Well, our next poet is R.A. Sorry, is Arsène. So Arsene's been writing poetry and prose since her first haiku in fourth grade. Since she has lived and worked in 19% of the countries of the world, starving off boredom as a classical musician, nutritionist, tourist consultant, conference organizer, paralegal for refugee cases, sailing old wooden boats, and even as a writer and editor. A proud grandmother and an unrepentant Red Sox fan, she now lives on a farm in the Canadian Maritimes. A Ruadh can be found in online and print collections such as Spectrum Quarterly and Monthly Journals, Quantum Entanglement, and Creative Juices 2, as well as featured in Expressions LA, Planet Poetry, and Global Poetry Network's Bottom Up. Currently, projects include collaboration of erotic poetry by women over 50 and a poetic visual examination of erotic perspectives with German-Canadian photographer Stefan Henrich. Note, her pen name is Ruadh, pronounced, yes, Ruadh. I think I got it right. And I saw Rose last night do an amazing performance. We're in for a treat. My pleasure again. And you just won a recent award, I believe. Is that correct? Which one is that?
Yeah, I won the book category in the San Gabriel Poetry Festival. So my collection, Silence of the Bells, will be published by Four Feathers Press.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, sort of later this spring. So I'm reading a couple of poems from that collection, as well as some others. Oh. And it's an impossible name to pronounce. It's Ruadh, which
Okay.
is Scottish Gaelic for redhead. So let me see. I can share screen, all right?
Oh, please.
Okay, they'll go one at a time because I didn't know there was a screen share. So, so first of all, some of my poetry is very explicit, particularly the war poems. So I just wanted to, you know, tell you practice self-care. The next couple of poems might be a bit difficult for some people. So take care of your good selves. Sow and reap. While I check in on the war from my farm, geese vie for dominance with the thump of faraway missile strikes in another time zone. I write poetry about blood, the agony of mothers splattered across the page from my safe place looking out on fields with grazing cows. A thundering cyclone bomb is no warning of annihilation, merely blowing rain. This spring, my hoe will turn over stones and clay, making way for potatoes. Farmers in that other time zone will look at rows of tanks, plowing a field where only bones and artillery shells break into the sun. No matter how loudly the rooster crows, he cannot drown out a mother's weeping or the silence of blood-soaked baby blankets. Military target. Like poppies on a snowy field, blood on the blanket. Wrapped tight against the cold, his father clutches him close. Mother cannot outrun her heart. Medic's oath cannot undo the harm. The photo screams in silence, echoing around the world, which shrinks to the size of a lifeless hand, an 18-month-old child who will never be warm again. Blood on the blanket, like poppies in a snowy field. And this one is from my farm. Fog. The stillness of fog has a different quality than the silence of snow. Fog is suspended animation, no past or future, the present muted and unmoving. Snow is inevitable, a continuity of natural order, life with promised awakening. Fog seeps into the cracks between seasons and weathers, solidly ephemeral. To the city. My hair carried you to the city. The sultry fragrance of the olive oil we shared on our bodies, salt tang of your sweat, the red dirt of the farm in your skin with a faint trace of tomato vine. My hair carried you to the city, recording the journey trekked across your chest and further when you led me by the hand, tangled with my lips and tongue as I tasted and teased you while testing my own arousal. My hair carried you to the city. I wrapped my face, inhaling you so deeply that I would remember, under the noise and chaos, how to remain soft and embracing of your exploratory penetrations, nailing my body to the floor. My hair carried you to the city.
Mm. Oh.
And the last one is also from my farm. And I should explain that frog croaking moon is the Mi'kmaq term for the moon at this time of year, the full moon at this time of year. And I live in the unceded and traditional territories of myself. I am Shawnee and Muskogee, so I am a visitor also. Frog croaking moon song. The night is telling tales only the dark can hear. Spring peepers gossip from pond to pond, censored by the grunts of bullfrogs and early toads. The night is telling tales. An owl communes with the moon, who responds with light, outlining his shadow as he wings across the night. Only the dark can hear. Now and then a dreaming duck startles from sleep, a ghostly protest from the starlit lake shore. The night is telling tales. The bats are not awake yet, but something small is darting between the stars. Only the dark can hear. The owl calls again, closer to the gypsy wagon where the hens huddle hushed in the rustling hay. The night is telling tales. Across the field, a coyote calculates his territory, triangulated yips moving under the full moon's compass. Only the dark can hear. The frog's chorus soars higher, counterpointed by midnight friends and foes going about their nocturnal springtime business. The night is telling tales. Only the dark can hear. And that's it.
Oh, thank you, Rose.
Thank you.
All right, it was really nice to just see and hear your work. I've never seen your work like that, and to see an owl communes with the moon and to hear it as well. It's just wonderful. Thank you for a wonderful read of many different moods. Indeed, it's great sensual poetry too.
Thank you very much.
Well, our next poet, Barry Wallenstein. Before I introduce him, I would say that Barry was my first mentor at City College in the 70s. And it's just such a great joy to have reattached myself to Barry. I haven't seen or heard from him in all those decades. And somehow I kind of got in touch. And he's the author of 11 collections of poetry. Most recently, It's About Time. And in 2020, Time on the Move. And Tony's Blues. He has made 8 recordings of his poetry with jazz, mostly Lisbon Sunset. He's the Emeritus Professor of Literature and Creative Writing at the City University of New York and an editor of the American Book Review. And he lives in New York City. Hi, Barry. Thanks for coming.
Good evening. Thank you for doing this, Mark. So I'll continue with the theme struck already. Wartime all the time. It fell to the dad after the last salvos, after all the priests had fled the town, to baptize the infant child and then hide him in high grass near a muscular sprite to provide against starvation, shield against war, fire, and the iron bands of closed borders. The grasses betrayed nothing. The hidden child and his protector have grown through the years, one taller, the other smaller. Invisible, they're spared the news of cities and towns burned and blistered. Between blasts and silences, a measured time prevails, filled with imaginings. The bombs land as duds. The sirens ring only false alarms, and the grasses part as they walk out. So there's some wishful thinking. And this is Narcissus distracted. Passing by a mirror, he pays no attention and gazes in the other direction. He pushes forward without
Barry, we
looking back.
lost your, I lost your volume.
Is this better?
Yes, thank you. I'll start from the beginning if you could, thanks.
Okay. Narcissus distracted. Passing by a mirror, he pays no attention and gazes in the other direction. He pushes forward without looking back. It's enough to know it's there, he thinks. Placing one small thought behind another, he banishes envy, spite, rancor, and courts a breeze on its way across a field of heather. Well below the field, beyond an opening in the fence, the stream is dammed. The water is pooled cold and clear enough to see down to the pebbles. He breaks the surface and counts the stones. And this is a poem that I will do occasionally with a saxophone player, a friend of mine. It's your turn to, it's called Money and Sex. It's your turn to bring in the dollars, your turn to bring in the bread. I refrain. My back's nearly broke. Besides, there's been enough such carrying in memory's cup to overflow the brim. So think of my pockets as stitched, and me, former king of the cash machine, out of town. Last week it was your turn to take out the smoke. Now it's my turn to bury the dollars found in the yard we stumbled on while searching back then for arable land to lie on. We did. Now it's this week again, and your turn to carry the cash, my turn to blow out the smoke. If we keep going this way, who won't want to know us, get close to us, marry us? Thank you very much, Mark, and I enjoy listening to you all.
Thank you very much, Barry. I can only imagine that with the sax player in the background too. You love that tradition. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Well, our next poet, D.A. Roarshock Wilson, is a San Francisco poet, author of First Hours of Rainy Day and Other Poems, and publisher of Roarshock Page, a literary street flyer. He reads regularly, locally, and internationally, in person and via social web, and can be found online at his website. You can all put your website and put stuff in the chat for all of us, and you'll see it later. And I just wanted to say that I've had the pleasure of seeing Roarshock perform not only his own poetry, but reading poems by Pound, by Kerouac, by Bukowski, and there is no finer reader I've heard in almost ever as Roarshock's reading of these poets. I'm just overwhelmed and awed by it. So I'm happy to introduce you and reading your own poetry, Roarshock.
Oh, Mark, thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me. And hello to those of you who I know already. And I'm very happy to meet all of you who I have not met before. And I guess it's kind of a loose format. I think I'll read about a handful of poems to you. And the first one appeared in my publication, The Roarshock Page, which is a literary street flyer, which I've done in San Francisco for many years.
Could you do the share, Roarshock, or is that out of your?
I'm reading from the printed text. I'll see if I can find links to the material as much as I can for you guys to look at later. So you'll just have to listen, I guess. So far, I've been doing these Zooms for like over 2 years. I have not yet to use the share screen function. So, but you still liked it, right? Right, Mark? So we'll do the best we can. Asilomar Beach Meditations. Flying eyeball wings across the sky. The bleach blue sky of April, offset against the white sand. I walk upon this beach in the slow loping gait of many miles to go before I rest my weary bones. I hear the rhythm in the waves, just listening without analyzing. not particularly going anywhere. Understand this is a miracle. Ain't it good to be alive? I rejoice in my poet's vision and regret not the times when demons torment me or emotions unhinge me or falsehoods deceive me. For these are necessary parts of the process. And only this ocean is eternal. The irregular rhythm of the waves, the manifestation of cyclic patterns, the diffuse blue light of a warm afternoon inspires one to calm meditations. Whilst one would bark at the moon that hangs in the dark sky, and both are reflections of one. Duality is illusion, all the same ocean. In this world of trickery, we trick ourselves, each of us Buddha, eating pomegranate seeds, enjoy the drama, dream of life, the poetry of it, and the ocean shall answer in its answer. That is no answer. Thank you. So I'm going to read a few from my book, First Hours of a Rainy Day and Other Poems. I'll put a link with all my how to reach me in the book and everything. And I'll start with the title poem. First Hours of a Rainy Day. Lines in Oakland lines, endless freeways in California, misty forests and angel minstrels, all is all is lines. Loved the girl, he loved the girl, orange thinness, yellow sun, springs and clocks, human fetus, incredible photos, beetles in yellow submarines, the circle is magic, child's art and pumpkins grand, such a perfect smile. No more, gone. All is darkness, never ending. The sun's not seen in Oakland, but lines are in the painter's eyes. What's that? All healing is self-healing. You must pay attention. When I see a person, they are not whole. I only see a cross section. Like a thief in the night, he snuck around, laying hands on people and praying for them. And they were getting well. You're out in the woods, eating well, meditating, doing what you do. Hilarious emptiness, inability to know social capabilities, traps you in constructs of your own mind. What do you say to that? Opened to the now, not well engaged in webs of thoughts and other crap, split down the middle. There must be some way to reconcile. Holistic means to be made whole once again after being rent asunder out here. Either somebody's lying or there's something wrong with our language. All healing is self-healing. I heard a bell. Does that mean my time is run?
No, that was somebody entering the.
Oh, I thought I had overstayed my welcome. I'm
I guess
glad
you have time for another one, last one, sure.
Okay, I'll do one more. And thank you all so much for listening and for being here. And thanks again, Mark, for inviting me. Where earth meets sky, on a high mountain pass, all about me peaks crowned with clouds, deep valley wells. The wind blows alive. Mountains as far as the eye can see. The walk sweat cool upon me, balanced in the sky. I strip off my outer skin and fling it on the wind. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Roarshock. I'd love to see it on the page one day, and I guess I will. And thank you.
They're all in the books. And the first one, I'll put the link in the chat.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing that.
Thank you.
Thanks for your always just great presence and reading of your poem.
It's a lot of fun.
Well, our next poet is Arsène. Arsène is a New Jersey-based spoken word artist, writer, and poet who found love for writing at the age of 16. She's used this passion in many reading performances, online and in person, throughout COVID-19 as well. During this time of uncertainty, she found the power of her voice to speak her words. Her belief in poetry being therapy, and the feedback from peers motivated her to begin composing her first collection, Introspectum. With love and empowerment focused topic, her work is tailored to resonate with those who struggle with life and heartbreak, self-empowerment, and self-worth. And you can follow her on Instagram at Arsène, and you can put that in there. And Arsène is also part of the Poetry Global Network, and she's one of the commentators on the Poetry News and brings news every week of events and different happenings in the poetry world. And it's always great to hear you perform, Arsène.
Thank you so much for that lovely intro. Thank you. I realized that I plugged my book, and I'm actually not reading from my book, but
Sure.
I hope you enjoy this piece anyway. This is called Air, and I know that most of you are meeting me for the first time, so this is going to be quite the intro. So here we go. Air. The first time I saw death, I was 17 years old. My grandmother laid motionless on her bed, froth from her convulsion that put her in this state, pooling at the side of her mouth. Kind of like when one is in a deep slumber, drool comes out the side of their mouth. I always thought death was more dramatic, more drastic. Turns out that drama occurred when one gets revived from their fading, like my grandmother did. The breath of fresh air we knew her to be received her breath of fresh air. It changed my world and raised its meaning to value the sanctity of life. Until I met myself in the depths of strife. I nearly forgot who I was, let alone this new mantra I had taken up. I was 29. I knew nothing about nothing, but I craved something, and I was lost in my need of wanting to be found. Anxiety-ridden thoughts filling my insomniac brain, round after round, hit me once, hit me twice. Grief is reckless. The sun could be burning bright, right into my retina, and all I saw was darkness. Sleepless nights causing a 504-hour day, causing you to hallucinate the deepest despair is a trip. Trips to the local craft store to inhale the sweet scents of cinnamon that reminded you of a warm home being your only sanctuary as you tripped, sinking into the dark crevices of your mind. Your conscience told you is always wrong. You drown. Waves of tears and anxiety pour over you like a one-clouded monsoon, severing you from connection to others. You are alone. There is nothing to talk about, but so much to say. They give you a pill that knocks you into unconsciousness until your mind is still. You float back to reality. Reality becomes a dream as you revive your soul and become whole again. Whole-minded, wholehearted, whole human, realizing your humanity is defined by hope, something that you had lost a long time ago. You awaken. I awakened. I found hope. I pursued dreams. I realized that things I thought intangible were actually right in front of my reach. And all I had to do was stretch my arm out. Love, support, ability to function, sleep. It was all there. That realization took me away from relying on pills and allowed me to start climbing up from the bottom of this hill. And now I rise, just like you will rise, because our downfalls only raise our flights upward, and that is how we evolve. We are powerful and resilient youth. And while some may think mental health is debilitating, finding ways to cope with it and having to rediscover who you are is actually rehabilitating. Redefining you helps you to unlearn preconceived notions of who you are supposed to be. And as a result, your spirit is free. I am free to be who I wish to be. And while I did not physically die, I did die 1,000 deaths. And just like my grandmother did, I received a fresh breath. I am my own breath of fresh air now. I embrace the soil that allows me to stand in it, allow my words to flow as I mean it, allow my soul to sing how it feels. And redefining who I have become has given me fresh oxygen. Now I find myself being my own breath of fresh air. And that's it. That's all I got.
Oh, thank you for a most confessional and uplifting poem. Thank you very much for sharing that. I can see how your poetry connects with your vision. Thank you. Our next poet is Prosser Stirling. Now, Prosser Stirling his alibi include corporate international relations, theater, performance art, music, graphic arts, and discussing African art with visitors to the Smithsonian. A native from Galveston, Texas, he lived in New Orleans, Paris, and Florence before making Washington, D.C. his present home. He's been a longtime participant in the poetry group, which I am host to, the DC Poetry Collective. We meet and discuss our poems, and I'm always very jealous of Prosser for his lines, and I constantly ask him if I could buy some, and he hasn't given me any for sale so far, but we're trying. He's a great word painter and a wonderful poet, as you'll find. Prosser, hi. You're on mute, Prosser.
Here we go. Can you see that?
Not yet, no.
Oh, no. Okay, I'll start over again. Share screen and well, for the first time, this is not working for me, Mark. I'm sorry. I think I might have pressed something wrong the first time.
Yeah, I know you've been doing this quite a lot, so sure.
Yeah.
One more try and then we'll come back.
Oh, okay, okay. Is it there?
No, that's unusual.
Do you see a document?
No.
No,
Oh, okay. Let me,
sometimes I find if I don't, there's a thing, show all screens. You might be able to use that and find it that way.
mhm. You better go on to the next poet. I'm awfully
Sure,
sorry.
sure. We'll come right back. I mean, this thing's kind of, or maybe you might want to log out and log back in, reboot takes a second. Sometimes that helps too.
Okay, okay, I'll try that.
So
Sorry,
our
guys.
next poet was supposed to be Raoul Liam James. I don't see Raoul. I know he had a very serious tragedy in his family recently, and he was trying to make it, but we'll see what happens there. So we'll move on to Taneesh Kaur. Yes, Taneesh, hi. A writer, a painter, an educator of East Indian descent based in the Bay Area. Their poetry appears in the San Francisco Public Library's Poem of the Day series, Lake Country's The Bloom, and the forthcoming anthology of Great Weather for Media was long last listed for the 2021 Frontier Poetry Open Prize. And you can read more of her work and in Spanish as well at her website. Hi, Taneesh.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. This is really lovely. So I just have a few. I did put my IG handle and YouTube handle there. So I want to give a land acknowledgement. I'm on unceded Ramatish Ohlone land, San Francisco, known as San Francisco also. And this is in honor of murdered and missing Native women, legacy of bliss and ignorance. Womanhood is sacred. Tonight I see stars for the first time in this foggy city now fogless, and the gentle nudge of the coaxing wind against my right cheek confirms, moves my head to the left when I ask the sky. If you're the right amount of nearsighted, they look like paper dangling from strings of different lengths, swaying when the invisible clouds pass over or under. I know they're stars because of how they twinkle, the gentle gleam of the Native women taken back up and the stories they tell, suspended from bliss above this blood-stained soil. They warn us of the work we have yet to do. Are we blind? Or we forget to look up, and on those endless nights of fog, we sit with cataracts of forsaken ignorance. It clouds us, our vision, to their light, the path to justice, straight up and down, must be enough if we can get the fog on our side and shape it into a foghorn. This is the one that was accepted in Great Weather for Media's next anthology, Sunlight, Lightening Memories. Sitting in my oversized green velvet chair in my old apartment, I remember in flashes a horrific feeling. Bullied for the hair on my arms and upper lip, whispers of werewolf from the boys in passing, of dreading to be skins at soccer practice for my belly hair I never was. Of the sweet smell of dewdrops on a 5 a.m. weekday, 2-a-day soccer conditioning on summer mornings, in solemn mourning, for my grandfather passing in a car crash 7 years after his daughter, my mother, tears streaming down my eye for what I was never allowed to feel at home. And the sun in my chair comes out, comes alive in my chair, dries the tears on my cheeks, still crawling from the ducts. The star shows me how to heal, what to heal, shows me what healing can be as it expands over my chest. I'd come so far, but this little bit foreshadowing its power, my power to heal. If light in our universe falls on our pretty dark heads, our skin bathing in warm residue of dewdrops on blades of grass on a summer morning, in solemn mourning of dark memories from our youth. And if we let the sun, let ourselves receive the sun, we would be healed. With my ancestors' souls. Thank you. With the rain comes a strange precipice of climbing or falling, a staircase of moral steps that take you higher or lower. I find myself marveling at the miracle of getting to here and sometimes slip down a few rungs in the process of forgetting where I come from, how High I've climbed, and the grace and graceless lessons of the process. I'm here and going up, and the faltering is part of it. So is rest and self-love. Rest, self-love. The energy is the wind. It sometimes carries me up, but my roots reach the core, and I'm an oak tree. My shoes have a thick and natural sole. I made with my ancestors' souls, a flexible, pillowy platform, rubber, footing that's so forgiving. How to make the light where I go bright, so bright that my shadow stays in my wake. How to live in light and lay to rest my trauma within the shadow, reminding me where I've come, but not informing where I go. I think I have two more short ones, if that's okay.
Sure, we're ahead of schedule. Enjoy.
Okay, thank you. Ramblings underfoot. What brings in the wind? Unhinged a wrath swinging through a door from above, so below it mimics our thoughts sometimes. Must think us silly to feel like we're alone sometimes. Light winds circling my chin make me look up in wonder at the stars. Cold swooshing, rising breezes make me sit more still, seat a little heavy on the volcanic core. I wonder if hell is the core of the earth I feel, rambling under my feet, the scrambling damned of this nation. If they listen to the wind a little by little, they'd get back morality, another word for salvation. I wrote that before Elon Musk, but it just seems to always, whatever they do. Anyway, invasion. This is about war. Really all the wars that we've been seeing. Invasion. When bombs singe birds to lawns now dead and buildings crumble into rubble, borderlines suddenly glow visible with shellfire, unsettling space. People escape land, communities take refuge in colonizer landscapes if they make it, fighting for dignity on imperial soil. Isn't a colonel always colonizing, even when they never leave home? Thank you. How do I stop share? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. That was really fluid reading. That was just wonderful to see the craft of your written word and your very soft and expressive voice together. It was a very moving experience in many different ways.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And of course, this is all recorded, and all of these poems can be seen a second time, on I'll post them in the on the YouTube channel for all of us to enjoy. And I'll tell you which time it was that you actually read. You can go right to your readings or send people there. Prosser, are you set? Do you want to give it a try?
Yeah. Let's try
okay.
again.
And then
Let's
we have,
try
and then afterwards is Unmesh, indeed.
Oh boy, I'm still not seeing the.
I think you should reboot your computer and come back to the.
Can you see it?
No, I think you should reboot. You should
Okay.
and just reboot and just come back. In the meantime, well, I'll move over to
That's
Unmesh.
all right. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. That happens. It's
Okay.
computer glitches all the time. To introduce Unmesh, who lives in India and has inspired everyone who hears him perform his totally unique and spellbinding way. He's an engineer by trade and a visionary poet. His book, Light Shadow Life, which I adore, and The Missing Verse of the Soul is bestseller among the Zoom poets world. Unmesh has a weekly open mic called Unmesh Life, which I'm happy to attend most Saturdays I can. And I know Unmesh now for a couple of years, and the first time I saw him, I was just mesmerized. And since then I've been continually in that space. So Unmesh, good to introduce you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Hopefully you are able to see my screen.
Yes, you're okay.
Yeah. Just give me a second. Just give me a second. Just 1 second.
That's good. It's got to click into it to get into the page itself. That's all.
Yeah.
Scroll up.
Okay, fine. Okay, thanks a lot, Mark, for that amazing introduction. You are wonderful. Hopefully you are able to see my screen.
Oh, good.
Yeah, okay. Here we go. They made him the king. They made him their master, signing the contract to be his slave forever. The second one is called Waltz. I was reading a poem, Home, Sweet Home. For some, home is only walls, walls with cobwebs, fractured walls, dim lights, no one waiting, no one wanting, no one looking, no one trying to read his face to understand how the world is taking its toll on him. Yes, for some, there are only walls. Earning happiness is difficult, but being happy, you need effort. Happiness is not effortless. Peacocks throwing feathers everywhere. Ignorant fools, a lot of people, idiots trying to lose what they have, throwing it away too easily, breaking their own homes. Then, one fine day, when the walls stare at them, crying, weeping, looking at the blank window, emotionless white floors, not home, just walls. I have seen few things. People having home, looking down at people having only walls, and people having only walls opening their gates to people with no homes, to make the walls breathe, alive and breathing, though still not home, but house with life. Let's open our homes. If you don't have a home, open your walls. Let's pour some life. Clean black dust, throw away the rust. No one tonight should stare at the walls alone. No one tonight should stare at the walls alone. That was the second one. And this is something which I have wrote recently. It's called Techno Poets. Sun was shining, roads were full of traffic, cars blowing their horns mercilessly, kids running to the school, birds sitting on electric cables precariously, lovers searching for privacy away from the maddening traffic, elders just enjoying the day in the sun, keeping aside the listening device. He was sitting in a sunlit room, in a gloomy mood, vigorously writing words in his notebook. The pages screech as if on an emotional roller coaster ride. He was positively negative all the time, his thoughts dancing on pages, Sometimes the thoughts used to dance in his dreams. His dreams are scattered on the white pages, ready to be torn. Notebook locking his poetry in the white noise of turned pages. He tried to show it to the world a few times. The world has no time to understand this misfit. Is this the end of his oasis of poetry? Will his poems never see the daylight of appreciation? And pandemic happened. Things change, confined to his room, with rooms full of thought, with a room full of thoughts. Things were not the same. Pandemic killed the traffic. Roads breathing again, plants looking forward to meet the birds, birds dancing in the bright sun. But the humans were jailed in their houses. It was a catastrophe. Everything stood still, waiting for the vaccine. Surprisingly, at the same time, his life turned topsy-turvy. Enter Zoom. Through the miniature windows of Zoom, the world was looking at his poetry. His poetry blossomed in an environment full of fear and pain outside, but love and brotherhood inside the Zoom rooms, across the oceans, connecting the continents, bringing the sacred, bringing the scared hearts together in the arms of technology. Was poetry waiting for the catastrophe to happen, to show its resilience? The pandemic is nearly gone. The masks are gone. Zoom rooms are still alive. People connecting, watching the poetry breathe, dance, and mature. Technology nurturing poetry in the cradle of technology. Poets and poetry connects the dots, count the stars. Love happens, friendship blossoms. The flag of poetry flies high on the masthead of technology. The flag of poetry flying high. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you for bringing out your inner beatnik, Unmesh. That was lovely. That was one very, very nice. That more of either page or stage. That was a combination of page and stage. Positively negative all the time. I'll remember that. Thank you, Unmesh. You're a great read. Oh, Prasad, you're back.
Let's try again.
You're in.
Hey, voila. Okay, take 3. Sorry for the incompetence, guys. First one is called Atchafalaya. This is an international call for those of you who don't know the geography of the U.S. Atchafalaya is a river basin in south central Louisiana. It's a river that runs parallel to the Mississippi. It's a word from the Choctaw. Atchafalaya. Ibis stilt the saltings through sawgrass and mallow, and come dusk bide beneath the star-flowered galingale, awaiting mud-colored minnow, schooled in degrees of deceit, lining their lives with a trace of truth to evade scissoring bills that pluck at the water like chopsticks. Bullfrogs' antiphonal echoes chant swampy epithets and tuquoques. Alligator eyes regain their prisoner's glare, parked in the shallows, and remain bare to loneliness, though dragonflies ribbon the motionless air above, skimming for nymphs. Slackened oars break the sound as my skiff drifts in a silver-plated wake between green growing on green. Ghosted cypress stumps, stone solemn, absorb the boat wash to silence my passage. Around me, listing crickets' wings soften their valence of plain song. Snowy egrets barrack and fold flock for the night, counting the kyries into slumber. I slow my strokes to behold no sense of anything beyond a world that gives what grows and keeps what dies. voyage. Could I be the one to discover the curve of your neck that only happens when you turn in surprise at a billowed curtain full enough for sail to embark, with no captain or crew or belongings except for the hairbrush you hold, knowing that before there was blue, there was blackness, then the birth of forms, the origin of names, naming yourself to what translates as a morning child, snailed as safe in a waffled blanket as in a shell's chamber, fair strands wisping the brow at the moment when Leonid showers shot the austral sky, birthing a wish that would fit in a paper cup to defer the end of everything until the night a white twist of hair takes an unwritten turn beneath arm-length strokes when the window at last exhales and you glance back at me as from a new world, hairbrush loose in your hand. Spanish Steps. She enters in a largo and with sidestep simples her hips past me and the squeeze waiting for final rounds, expression jacketed in a laboring stare. Cold air, perfume, and smoke envelop like the varnish of a lost violin from Granada. My rhapsodies have already played, though for a moment wonder what awaits her. She's late. Beyond the clinking glass of pink drinks, has he loosened his liveries already at a back table with gin-faced quiescence? Has a crease chopped into his brow, sensibilities unsweetened? Her own cloud of matter is about to hover his surrounds. An Orphic approach forgives all. Will she then skip into riffs of Spanish steps taken from the fan dance of Seville, as if to say, I'm worth the wait? In the end, will a tense chin twitch before sorrow breaks her face, pondering impossible lines of farewell? I unfold my prose in a well-rosined sound to say goodnight to everyone I do not know, side space my exit to wider air and wonder what awaits me down 2 alleys and 4 streetlights away, hoping for something one does not think of until it is there, like apricot blossoms, the morning star, or a lover's embrace. I'm finishing up with another poem about critters. Pop. In the marches between cowpens and wood, the low gray weasel, both king and curia of the hedgerow, provokes his corpus to bend and wind benign to knobby tubers that rib his bosky corridor in the warp and woof of the vale. Pithing feathered prey to the fricula, he brightens his bite with higher tooth as gristle gives way to bone. Claw-pierced earth and pivoting scuffs engrave the dominion of his world that never wakes from its damping chill. Dumb in pre-horror, black squirrels periwinkle the verge, unseeing, unknowing of the low gray weasel, sticky whiskered jarl of the downlands, who, like them, enjoins nightly slumber in the shape of a perfect cue. Thank you all.
And all of it, black squirrels periwinkled the verge amongst each line. Some of your poems, like each line becomes a poem within itself. Thank you, Prosser, as
Thank you,
usual,
Bob.
just for
Thank you.
painting all those wonderful words for us to enjoy. Thank you again. Carolyn Minter, hi. And there you are. She's a native from Chicago, Illinois. my new home, who enjoys doing workshops with Chicago Poetry Foundation, creatively crafting her gift with others throughout various outlets. She loves sharing during open mics and being a feature on several scenes. Her first book of poetry, Words of My Mouth, From Poe to Angelou. She has been a student of powerful poetry. Education, history, and Christianity collided and have anchored her own poetry journey. To fuel her poetry, she believes in the power of quiet meditation. It is something she contemplates and integrates. Her passion for poetry runs deep, leading her to naming 2 of her children after famous poets. Additionally, as an historian with an advanced degree in history and education, she leverages her knowledge of the past to provide context to the synergies and dichotomies of current events. Carolyn, looking forward to meeting you in person soon.
Hopefully, so sure.
Same
Okay.
town.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, Kayla. So just share my screen. All right, can you see my screen?
No, I didn't catch it yet.
Okay, let's try.
Have you done this? Have you shared before?
Haven't shared with you before.
No, but it's there, same. Best to come back to the group. Best to come back and then you hit the share screen, click on your poem, and then hit that share button inside that.
Go back to the meeting. Okay, hold on. Come back to the meeting.
Yeah. Start
Okay.
fresh. Yeah.
Start fresh and share my screen.
Click on your poem and then click the share button.
Oh, I hate to hold us up.
That's okay. If your
Do
poem
you
is
have
not
a
hand,
Mac or a PC, Caroline?
Hold on, Mac.
Okay, then probably what happens is you click share screen and then you will see a white screen that has different documents on it, and you click the poem that you want.
and then hit the blue share button nearby.
No, it doesn't work that way on a Mac.
No,
You have to
doesn't,
click
huh?
on the document.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just double click it.
Okay. Now try to share it again.
But the document needs to be open already.
Everything is already open.
Open, so it should come up on a screen, and then you can double click it so we can see it.
Okay.
There you
There
go.
you
got it now.
go.
There you go. Okay.
All right. So
Oh,
I
cool.
wanted. Okay. So I wanted to start off by sharing what happened. One of my students drew this picture that you see on the left and gave it to me. And then I began to ask her questions about what it is that she meant by it. And she just said that she was doodling. And I immediately thought of Paul Lawrence's Dunbar, We Wear the Mask, as I began to talk to her about it. So I did a kind of mirror image, a mirror piece of We Wear the Mask as it relates to her piece of artwork. It says, I wear the mask that binds and ties. It hides my pain and shades my egg-shaped eyes. These cries call out to this human caterpillar. With a worn and broken heart, I smile and mumble words that have traversed with me for miles. The world has made me oh so wise in counting all my fears and disguise. Yes, they can see me crystallizing now. I release the mask. I smile, for Christ whispers, I'm his child. To thee who caresses my sweet soul as it arises, I sing, even though some days can be wild. From the bottom of my feet, I smile. The world will never see me otherwise. For I hear him say, you better fly on the inside. I release my mask. So today I released the masking tape that has concealed the beauty inside, all the stickiness that was present, trying to hold together these nonsensical things. I released the mask that has been buried inside my chest, eating away all the layers of me. I released the mask and now stand on the precipice of a new day. I'm metamorphosing into who I truly am, all that God created me to be, all that he wishes for me to mirror back to him. Right now, I hold in my hand my tomorrow. I no longer wear a mask. That was the first piece. And so my second piece is entitled Body Snatchers. I stay in Silicon Valley, where I have to tuck my tummy as I travel to and fro. Sometimes I must lift my face in order to face the world and grow. My hair is another dimension, being chased by transplants and extensions. I try to stay abreast. Sometimes it takes me up and sometimes it takes me down because you know lipo sucks the life out of you, but you gotta do what you gotta do. But Botox is my best friend. We'll be together till the end. Cellulite was like a twin till I treated her. I had to defend myself, that is, you know, in order to live. Ran into old Rhino, being nosy as usual, you see. So I had to get a chemical and peel him off of me. And Chin was my friend who liked to lift weights, constantly on the reshape, make you do a double take. Ended up being fake. But now I'm finally free. Many changes to many degrees. When it's all said and done, it wasn't cheap, hon. My body is snatched. And my final piece is entitled Bullshit. Been watching this trial and I'm being tried over and over again. It's time. I make a motion to adjourn this journey. I fell asleep and you crept under my skin, sailing silently down the crevices of my vessel, and you became nestled. Since I am the sum of my surroundings and I hear those words resounding, I know it's not a cosmic coincidence that you and I have been connected like a cable station that needs to be unplugged. This static stagnation has got me disconnected from the divine, been detained in your detention center, not feeling centered since you entered. But today, I flush your fermented foolishness and I empty your excrements that torment, and I wipe away your worthless whispers, and I wash my wounds and I welcome wisdom once again. I stand now on the corner of my consciousness, fully aware of who I am, and I'll be damned if I buy into your bullshit again. Thank you.
I'll be damned. Thank you. And thank you for that second poem also. That's really very clever. Might become a classic in the in the women's surgery scene. Thank you very much. Wonderful, Carolyn. Thanks. Lowen just informed me that he's in Manila. He's in a business meeting. He thought he could be getting out of it, but unfortunately he can't. So he's going to have to miss tonight. So our next is a Dr. G.K. Jayaram. Are you there, Doctor? Yes. I think you're on mute and your screen is dark. I want to make sure you're there before I introduce you. Hello? Maybe you stepped away from the computer.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. There you go. Good to see you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, can't see you.
I'm.
If that's okay, you can't.
I have. I'm enforced to be modest by the electronics because it doesn't permit me video. So believe me, this is not me being modest, but being compelled to be so.
No, I've seen you before. Are you able to share before I introduce you?
Yeah, I shall.
Okay, so let me introduce you then. You are
in a moment.
Yes, you are. You were born in India in 1941.
Can you
came to America. Yes, yes. I'll introduce you. Thank you. I just want to make sure you're good. Let me introduce you quickly. You were born in India in 1941, came to America in 1968. Since 2001, living in India and America, 35 years of corporate career, chairman of 2 companies, international management consultant, author of How to Help an Elephant Make a U-Turn, a book on leadership. Since 2004, founder of a nonprofit in India and in America serving the education of below poverty line children. A playwright, plays won awards and ran to packed houses, a memorist, a novelist, and a poet in 3 languages, Moth Story Grand Slam winner in New York, best storyteller in Philadelphia. Above all these, and first-time grandfather of, what can I say, the cutest grandchild this side of the Rockies. Well, I got a couple of cute ones on the other side of the Rockies, but I was glad to introduce you, GK, and enjoy your read.
Thank you. Since we have our first grandchild, I thought I should communicate with my children first. So this is called A Letter to Our Children in 3 parts. Nostalgia. It seems like yesterday you were born. A boy and a girl, an ideal family, people said, and we agreed for more reasons than they could know. She and I had traveled, each alone before we met, through the vale of tears, across the bridge of sighs, to what we hoped was the promised land. In a cliched universe where deep sadness came in words of shallow truisms, she and I knew, no, hoped fervently, desperately, as we married, that there would be light at the end of this tunnel. But we had to spark it, spawn it, and share it. We flipped the switch. In the lighted land we entered, you came. You were our twin lights, a year between you, lighting up our lives and giving us the gift of caring for you instead of caring for ourselves. We had no experience, no wisdom to be parents. We just had love to spare. And you grew up just fine, a little complex, a tad independent, a lot intense, a lot intelligent. We hope that's because of us. We fear it may be in spite of us. The truth may be it had nothing to do with us. We were the spaceship you boarded, and you got off on your planets and went your ways. The ship has no right to sentiment. Regrets. Now you're as old as we were when you were born. The years have gone by, and the home movies in the theater of my mind rest in the attic. Once in a while, I see the scenes of you and us flash by as though they happened to someone else. In your youth and beauty, in your passion and logic, I'm proud. Yet I cannot recognize the little bundles of joy we carried upstairs as you each pretended to be asleep. From the agile, analytical minds I admire in you, I cannot hear the questions you asked all the time and the answers we gave. I do not make up anymore the interminable stories that lulled you to sleep night after night. We miss those chores, those sweet burdens. Our lives suffused by care for you were full. There was purpose, meaning in the changing of diapers. Years have gone by, and now the scenes are like glimpses through the windows of a running train, too fleeting, too ephemeral. Yet we cling to those images because, might as well admit it, then you needed us, now you don't. Then we were the air you breathed, the water you drank. Now we are the liqueur for an occasional festive mood. Hope and change. Enter my mother on the screen. What is this I hear? Look who is talking. When you were my baby, I prayed to the goddess never to let you grow up. And yet you left me as soon as you could for friends, for books, for excitements of every kind. Oh, I know, my baby, how it hurts to have the ones you love leave the nest and fly away. And when they return, they're bigger than you, stronger than you, and they don't need you. But mother, I wanted to come back. I came back. Oh, see, my smart son, love binds, constricts, suffocates. You fled the golden prison of love and returned to your home where one cares voluntarily. Love eats his target. Care holds hands and sits gently by the side. Is it possible, mother, to share what love feels like, or rejection, or simple compassion? Can we aspire to understand? To understand, my dear, is for the angels. To accept is enough for the humans. Maybe it suffices to share our care and let you be. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mm. And
Hi.
thank you, and
I
thank
can't
you
hear.
for
I can't hear you.
and thank you for your very you find a way to talk in the most simplest language about the most complex things, and thank you very much for reaching that nice spot. Thanks for joining us, and enjoy the
Thank you.
grandchildren.
Thank you
Indeed.
very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, our next poet is a famous Zoom personality named Christopher T. George, born in Liverpool in 1948, and emigrated to the U.S. in 1955, returned home to experience the swinging 60s, re-emigrated to the U.S. in 68 and studied poetry with Sister Maria Eschner and Elliot Coleman. His poetry has been published in journals worldwide. He lives with his wife, Donna, in Newark, Northern Delaware, and also an historian and essay writer of many different sorts. I have his book on the War of 1812. He also has collections about Edgar Allan Poe and Jack the Ripper and a whole bunch of other very curious characters. Chris, always enjoy hearing you read.
As Chris Marr just said, I'm the fifth Beatle. But I'm going to get into several different things. This is of course, a architectural thing, and in a slideshow. I'm treating this as a found poem. Oops, go back a bit. Medieval graffiti. A decidedly grumpy-looking late medieval angel from St. Nicholas's Chapel in King's Lynn. But I guess you'd be grumpy too if some bugger had nailed your wings to the roof timbers. Some of you might recognize this bloke, Jonathan Miller, who was part of Beyond the Fringe, a satirical group in the 1960s. He wrote a book. He's a doctor, or was a doctor. I think he's passed away several years ago, called A Body in Question. And I read it when I was a medical editor at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, and wrote a poem about it, and received a very effusive letter back from Dr. Miller. Dear Mr. George, thank you so much for sending me your fine poem. It was very moving to see that my work had penetrated someone else's imagination and set off further thoughts, which were presumably lying dormant in the book which I wrote. I shall cherish the poem and stick it in the front cover of my own copy of The Body in Question. Many thanks. After reading The Body in Question to Jonathan Miller, now I see that the human being is neither conceived nor born but played in a silent symphony of the self. God's notation, the self-made fat man's, notes like Bach's in the chromosomes. So throw out the nest of exquisite Russian dolls, and exquisite the fire in the heart, theories about the living self that refuse to live beyond belief. Appreciate instead the magic in our blood, oxygen merging with the alveoli of the lung in silence like ships under sail to wharves. And the chromosomes, dividing, dividing, in silence, no fanfare, new life pulsing where there was none before, pulsing like the aurora borealis, a rainbow sky on a northern night. The legend of the Green Man. The Green Man persists through the lies, the obfuscations, the pretentious accents, and the newspaper pirate hats crafted from today's headlines. The Green Man peers at you from behind the tree trunk, entwined by the yellow-eyed, luminescent merchant who serpent, just as he spied on the Persian archers, the Roman pikemen, who tramped through the forest, leaving their dead slumbering under fall leaves. Still, we earn our salaries, as did those soldiers, rewarded with salt, never look back. We pretend we are in receipt of generous donations, largesse of the gods, golden leaves that mound up in attic chests. The Green Man is watching you through each day's relentless trek. The never-ending commercial static, something that you can't control, despite all the newfangled inventions, something primal and obscene. Yes, yes, you saw him once seen, never forgotten. Listen, he's listening to you, watching your every move. You hide your hand in a black velvet glove, hide your face in a mask, just don't ask. The key to the Bastille sits in a glass case at Mount Vernon, given to George Washington by a Marquis Lafayette, that is. Get it? I'll finish with this one, Esther Majora. The blue iris blooming like the flame of truth. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Chris, for your always creative presentations that you put together. A great combination of history and personal stuff. Thank you. And we have three poets left. We have David, Keith, and Tara. You're all here. And thank you all for hanging in there as you have for the majority of this event. David Siller is next. David is based in Queens, New York, where I'm from, actually. Poet, translator, occasionally actor and director. David studied as a Francophile literature, focusing on poetry and theater, which teaches also French literature. He's a voracious reader, film, TV, and comic book buff, and knows more about French hip hop than you could possibly imagine. You might find him where he lives in Queens, but always find him at Waxy and Poetic. This is his website, and always great to hear David's work. A fellow Francophile and just the most interesting poet, as you'll see.
Right. Thanks, Mark. And I just want to say to Chris, like, I love the marquee joke. That was fantastic. So I got it, to be sure. I'm going to start with this poem called We Are Delayed Because of. And the first time we spoke was on a crowded subway car, and it was no accident that I managed to untwist my tongue long enough for an awkward hello to rise from the timid lockbox that keeps me separate from normal human interactions where I am out of sync. This is a Queens-bound F Express. On most occasions where the MO is to sink into myself, better hanging on to straps of crowded thoughts, I instead jostle human, to unseparate my voice from your ears, your song from mine. No accident, then, that in a few moments of foolish bravery or brave foolery, I rise to move from here to you. Green light to expressive tongue. The next stop will be 42nd Street, Bryant Park. And tied it is This cottoned, hesitant tongue where a life vest is not enough to stop me sinking into my sea of doubt, bay of disbelief. And still I rise from this too tight seat on an underground train crowded with commuters and dancers and panhandlers. I've accidentally convinced myself that words will not keep us separate. We're being held momentarily. At this end of the car, the score of bodies separating us and our initial contact, our first words, kiss, embrace, lips and tongue dancing as if colliding in some mass transit accident, and I wade through the swamp of passengers. My heart sinks as at first I struggle to make it through the crowd of headphoned, book-nosed, ear-budded, phone-focused mass. Hope rises. The train's dispatcher, and as I clamber through a bipedal jungle, as eyes rise from my solitude to your "well, come over here" glance, I begin to separate this lumpy, undesirable frame from the train crowd. Thought bubbles morph into speech bubbles as hello moves from brain to tongue, and my only thought is how to sink into the seat beside you, willing a welcome, happy accident. Connections available for the B, D, and M, or derailment, resetting my course to you through accident or crash through crowd and car too. Rise bold and brave in your vision. I want to sink into you, merge, mingle, marry, so as not to be separate, whether connected by hand or heart, tongue finding each other on a local rush hour train, delayed and crowded. We will be moving shortly. It is no accident that this crowded commute, as my tongue rises, clicks its to roof of closed mouth, and I sink into my seat, insists on keeping us separate.
Mm.
And a couple of short ones. Thank you. Sea nettle jellyfish. It is a pulsing heart floating in the sea. Tendrils twist and twitch with the throb. Its feathery tails trail along trains to gorgeous globe-inspired gowns. Seductive, hypnotic it is, so like the human analog, adrift, able to ache you unawares, but ready to barb and sting your foolish reach. Big fin reef squid. Straight arrow grace, their translucent fins, thin as dreams, ripple rapidly through clouds and currents we cannot see. Every once in a while, their tentacles bloom, grasping for the sea's possibilities. And I fear I did a little Subway theme. So this one's called Marvelous Dynamite Image, Volume 3, Number 12. Even in the comics, New York skies will stop you dead in your tracks as you move from panel to splash page to panel, same way they do as you move from block to block, splashing in the middle, in the puddle at whatever random intersection. Up there you see the maybe famous sky scratchers seemingly scraping the undersurface of clouds, the straight and narrow buildings reaching for more, often punctuated by the bosomy protuberance of water towers, or the seductive winks of billboards and LED incantations. The background is broad brushstrokes of early or late day flame tones, or the deep inked blots and bleeds of bruised nights, sometimes starry, sometimes the void between. At your feet, at least in some places, a regular grid that gives way to a jumble of streets and angles, as below your feet parallel rails trail uptown and downtown, crossing and crissing expressfully and locally. And whether on the ground cement paths or on under the ground paths of iron, there's boundless cause for hope. Eyeing the two great men celebrating 20 years together, though recognized legally for only about a quarter of that. The two ladies lost in each other more than the city, or the guy with the girl clearly out of his league. But by the sound of her laugh, you can tell she meant it when she said, "Be witty, making me laugh is the quickest way to win me over." Yes, even on the train, these skies are never far away, covering even the man with no legs, pogoing from one end of the car to the other, one end of the train to the other, donation bucket crooked in his arm when he's not rattling it against the train floor, one gloved, dirty hand turned skyward. Thank you very much.
Bravo.
Bravo. That was
Thank you.
wonderful. Well, thank you for
Thank
that trip for expressfully and locally trip
Beautiful.
on the New York subway system, which I certainly spent a lot of years in.
Yeah.
Took me back. Well done. Great imagery and great lines. I also, a lot of people were commenting on the physical form of the writing also. Could have never have seen that, just in a regular read. So I'm glad we were able to see it as well. Thank you, David. And Keith Marr. Hi, Keith. Thank you for hanging in there. Keith is a spoken word poet, psychotherapist, and multicultural trainer who uses poetry to ask questions about race, identity, self-love, and social justice. Keith believes the spoken word can build bridges between communities, help celebrate roots, and inspire a sense of social connection at a time our culture is urgently in need of it. He's a popular MC and featured poet at the UCSB Multicultural Center and a highly requested workshop leader for the Center of Equity and Social Justice, Santa Barbara Community College, on issues of identity and the healing power of poetry. As a graduate psychology lecturer, he has used poetry to deepen the cultural awareness of counseling students at numerous universities. Keith, welcome to Planet Poetry.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for inviting me. I feel so honored and excited to be among such esteemed poetic luminaries. This is great. Oh, by the way, it's nice to be in close proximity to New York, if even virtually, as my dad grew up in the LES, the Lower East Side. Anyway, moving on. So this piece is dedicated to the victims.
Can you hit the share, Keith? You're able to?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
No, please.
Yeah, what I'm saying at this point is not in the share, but let me, yeah. And then there it is. You can see that, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so this piece is dedicated to all of the victims of anti-Asian violence, some of them who lost their lives. It's been reported that in the span of about a year, the reports jumped 339%. This is also to commemorate prematurely by a few days, Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, which is the month of May. So this poem is called Ode to Basketball in Asian America. It's about time we celebrated ourselves. It is about time we reclaimed ourselves. We reclaim ourselves through our spoken word, America. We are thousands of stories you've never heard, like stories on the basketball court, the highest court in the land, where I'm often lost in the flow. My flow is so fluid. I'm liquid. As the master Bruce said, I'm H2O. I'm the athletic and the poetic, the aesthetic and the kinetic. Each dribble a prayer, each shot a meditation. I'm dancing with God at the church of the three-point shot. When a voice rings out, hey, Egg Foo Young, excuse me, let me break it down. I am not a food, motherfucker. And why are we always called foods? Why did Jeremy Lin hear taunts of orange peel chicken at the free throw line? Why was Jet Li called dim sum? Why was Manny Pacquiao told to shut up, go home and make sushi? And why why did I hear Egg Foo Yan? What I do know is ever since I was young, America, you keep asking, just what are you? Where are you from? And when I say Fresno, California, you say, no, where are you from? When I say Fresno, California, you say, no, where were you born? I mean, what I mean is, where was your mother born? And I say, Fresno, California. You say, what I really mean is, where was your grandmother born? And when I say, would you believe Fresno, California? But now the questions have turned to violence. Now, when a young Asian woman, a friend of my daughter's, walks down a West LA street, she's pelted with eggs by a carload of white men who shout, go back to your own country. Now, an 83-year-old Korean grandmother is knocked to the ground, kicked in the head, left bleeding, while the female assailant yells, white power. Now 6 Asian women are murdered in Atlanta. Now, a 79-year-old Asian man in Chinatown is set on fire. Now I carry a stout wooden stick in my backpack. After 5 generations, I am still an alien in the land of my birth. People ask if I speak English when I open my front door. For a moment, I'm that 5-year-old on the playground I was before. I take that 5-year-old by the hand. Together, we look America straight in the eye. We say, America, you are a home with the front door closed. We say, America, where are we from? We're from an ancient bloodline of fierce generals and fierce Asian warriors. We carry their legacy in our bones. We say, America, we are not what you want us to be. We are not meek. We are not docile. Oh no. America, we're not what you're expecting to see. We are not your one-dimensional, cardboard, feminized, pasteurized, modern-day coolie model minority. We are a luminous dream that our forefathers sing. We are the strength and resilience of those imprisoned in the camps. We're the railroad workers who drove the spikes, but were left out of the dance, whose lost lives birthed a new saying, ain't got a Chinaman's chance. We're the heartache and the heartbreak we will never, ever, ever shake. For the murder without justice of Vincent Chin, who on the week before his wedding had his skull bashed onto the pavement by a baseball bat, and whose 2 convicted killers, I said convicted, never spent a single day in jail, because as the judge said, I don't think these boys would do that again. We're the in-your-face edge of Margaret Cho. We're the children of our ancestors. We honor tradition, but take it strong to the whole. And at the end of the day, we are Carlos Bolo's son, who still carried America in his heart after all he endured. And we have not lost hope in the promise of what America can be. My brothers and sisters, if a seed must be planted, if a dream is needed, if a vision must be imagined, now then is the time. It's been time. It is about time. We celebrated ourselves. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Keith. I think I heard that piece once before, perhaps, and to see it in all of its capital letters and the way you wrote it, it even makes it even stronger. It's a really strong. I mean, it's a performance piece, certainly a spoken word piece, but at the same time, to see it adds that extra strength with your reading as well. Thank you for me, it was very moving. And thank you. I was a basketball player too, so I certainly get that. Yeah.
Thank you,
for-
Mark.
Thank you for sharing that, Keith. Well, we come to the close of tonight with Tara A. Elliot, who I just met recently, and happy to say her poems have appeared in many publications, including the Tash Journal of International Poetry and Art, Stirling, and the American Journal of Poetry. The founder and director of Maryland's Salisbury Poetry Week. She also serves as co-chair of the Bay to Ocean Writers Conference and president of the Eastern Shore Writers Association, to which I've attended some of their wonderful workshops, and thank you for that, Tara. She recently received a Literary Arts Independent Artist Award from the Maryland State Arts Council. Her poem, The Fox, will appear in the next issue of Gargoyle in tribute to her former professor, Lucille Clifton. For more information, she'll put yours on the chat as Tara Elliott. Tara, thank you for coming and for
Thanks
closing
for
us out.
having me. Absolutely. Thanks. I really appreciate it, Mark. I'm going to read 3 pieces from my work in progress, which is called Honeycomb. And I'm going to share a screen. Here we go. And just a little bit about the format of this. It's in black with white text because I have MacTel 2, so it helps me to see. And it's pretty increased font, just so I can see. All 3 poems evoke the imagery of the Eastern Shore of Maryland, which is where I live. I love the Eastern Shore, and these 3 poems are kind of in tribute to the Eastern Shore. The first one is about eagles that were dying along the Eastern Shore of Maryland and the emotion that it evoked for me. This is called Blue. All winter, birds of prey have sailed through this landscape, dark wings coasting along wild currents. Scouring fields, they seek the small and moving. This time last year, a farmer found 13 bald eagles on his farm, all dead, wings splayed like criminals the Romans once crucified. NPR tells me the ancients had no word for it, the color blue. Except for the sky, they found so little of it in their natural world that even Homer spoke of the sea as wine dark. Last night's rain has turned the Narrows a muddied brown, and this morning the Chesapeake unhinges like an oyster. Here wave crests upon wave, here wind is little more than gust and bluster without a bird in sight, not even a black-tipped gull. I edge into the great steel cage that separates east from west, country from city, shore from shore. Once more, I attempt to bridge this distance. Scientists say until we have a way to describe something, we might not even be aware of it. I recently read the eagles bore no obvious signs of trauma, as if one day, tired of flying, they simply slipped on the sky and fell. The next poem is actually about Ernest Hemingway's house in Key West, Florida. This is called True. All you have to do is write one true sentence, Ernest Hemingway. Another hurricane arrives today, and yet Hemingway's cats will remain prowling around, arcing their backs against doorways, clawing after mice. The house, now silent and free of tourists, rests with its shutters firmly closed, wrapped up as tightly as one might hold a clenched fist. You never would have evacuated. Even if the governor demanded it, you would have stayed sitting in your recliner, weather radio crackling beside you. You'd read a novel while keeping an eye on the storm. This would be after nailing plywood to the windows, flinging outdoor furniture into the pool, filling each bathtub to the rim, cigarette and endless red ember between your lips, coffee thrumming through your veins. There was a careful madness to the way you prepared. This was survival, and you lived for it. Like Hemingway, we once owned a 6-toed cat. You brought him home as a good luck charm, a scrapping tabby with a black M tattooed between his ears and feet that loomed so large, it was as though he were wearing boxing gloves. At night, we would hear him hissing and spitting on the roof as he took on whatever creature came across his path. In the morning, he would leave gifts on the porch, the tuft of fur from a squirrel, half a bird's spidery rib cage, the small white stomach of a bunny. It's how he showed love. I can't remember how he died, but I do remember how he once scratched my mother's arm and how that scratch rose white and long, blood piercing the surface in a straight line so that it bled from wrist to elbow. As she whimpered, you snatched that cat by the loose skin of his neck, slid the sliding door sideways so that it bounced backwards on its track, and threw him out into the night with such force that he landed in the branches of a tree. He didn't come down for 2 days. Hemingway wouldn't have left either. He would have lingered long over what he built, cursing at the fucking storm. There at his house, cemented to the concrete trim of the swimming pool his second wife wanted, is a coin. The pool, which workers pickaxed through dense coral to hollow out, took over 2 years to finish, during which he threw the last of his money down on the incomplete flagstone and yelled that the bitch had spent all he had, so she may as well take his last penny. We once camped in the Keys, and when we left, we had to cut the straps from our tent with a hatchet because the stakes, which took hours to hammer into the same coral, simply would not let go. My cousins told me you once drove your Jag all the way from New York City to Key West in less than 15 hours. You pissed out the window so you wouldn't have to stop. You were on leave. You wanted a drink. In plain sight in Hemingway's garden is the urinal he carted home for blocks from Sloppy Joe's, where it is said he pissed away his money, now a drinking fountain for those 6-toed cats.
Oh.
Upstairs in one of his bedrooms, a single ceramic statue of a cat sits on top of a dresser, eyeing everything, a trade from Picasso for a box of hand grenades. Her mane flows backward in signature black, yellow, and red. Her nose, a simple rectangle against the geometry of her face. She possesses a perfect heart painted on the left side of her chest. And though she only has 3 toes on each of her feet and lives in a cave of plexiglass, she will weather this storm. She has already outlived you both. And the last piece is called Honeysuckle. Petals softer than skin, cup nectar deep, and wait for the precise moment the tongue tip touches the smallest of drops. I will inch along wooden fences, climb over the tops of these trees, even across the shale. Rooted here in coolest shade, I want you the way honeysuckle craves the sun. Thank you, everyone.
Well, what a journey that was with Hemingway. What a great narrative. And to sustain it for that amount of detail in there. Really wonderfully well crafted, and certainly kept our interest totally through it. Great stuff.
Thank you so much, Mark, and thanks for having me. I'm sorry I was late, but I was hosting an Eastern Shore Writers Association program, which you guys are welcome to tap into. I'll throw the link in the chat window, and they are all free and open to the general public.
Yeah, the Crastic workshops and workshops of all sorts I enjoyed. And that was great being in, I hadn't really, I just read about you. I hadn't really seen your poetry, so it was really good for me to be introduced to it in this fashion. And thank you again. And thank everybody. I personally just love experiencing poetry this way as a change of pace from the, of just having it read to me. I find myself able to engage in a little bit different kind of a fashion, of course, and I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. And it will be on YouTube shortly, so I can go back and review some of your performances and some of your great poems. And such a great mix of stage, and I love that new expression, page and stage poetry. I think that's a perfect way of putting it for the modern age. I picked that up recently. Well, thank you all again. And I'm going to stop the recording in here.